Stolen Eyes. Jeepers Creepers follows Trish Jenner and her younger brother Derry as they head back home during vacation. The trip seems normal until an old, threatening truck starts chasing them. Still shaken, the two keep driving. Shortly after, they spot the same truck parked in front of an abandoned church. The driver, wearing a long trench coat, is dumping what look like bodies into a huge pipe in the ground. Against all common sense, Derry insists on going back to check it out. I would have run away. I didn't see anything. Crawling through the pipe, he falls into the church's basement and finds a horrifying scene. Bodies sewn into the walls, and even a man still alive begging for help. From that moment on, the chase becomes personal. A psychic calls the siblings and makes disturbing predictions, including the song Jeepers Creepers, which signals a terrible fate for one of them. The police get involved, but they quickly prove powerless. The truck driver reveals his true form, an ancient, monstrous creature known as the Creeper, which awakens every 23 years to feed on humans. In the final attack at the police station, the Creeper tracks the siblings by scent. Trish begs to die in Derry's place, but the monster makes its choice. It ignores Trish, grabs Derry, and flies off with him into the darkness. In the final moments, the movie reveals Derry's brutal fate, his eyes torn out and now used by the Creeper. The Chainsaw. Melody, her sister Lila, Dante, and Ruth travel to the abandoned town of Harlow, Texas. The group's idea is simple: buy old properties, push out the decaying past, and turn the place into a modern, profitable area. Everything seems under control until they discover that an old orphanage is still occupied by an elderly woman named Ginny. The argument over ownership ends badly when Ginny suffers a heart attack. She's taken to the hospital accompanied by Ruth and a silent man who lived there. On the way, Ginny dies, and the man reveals his true nature: Leatherface. He kills the ambulance officers and murders Ruth before returning to Harlow, starting a new bloodbath. While Melody tries to deal with the legal issues of the eviction, Leatherface attacks one by one. Dante is brutally killed, Richter dies trying to help, and a bus full of investors turns into a bloodbath. The town quickly turns into an uncontrolled massacre. Sally Hardesty, survivor of the 1973 attack, shows up trying to end it once and for all, but ends up severely injured. Melody and Lila manage to knock Leatherface into a reservoir and believe they've finally won. At dawn, they flee the town in a car. At the very last second, Leatherface reappears in the middle of the road, smashes the car window, drags Melody out, and decapitates her with the chainsaw. The Barbed Wire. In Maniacs, a group of 6 college students and a couple of bikers end up in a strange place, an isolated village called Pleasant Valley. The place seems frozen in time and is in the middle of a festival celebrating the American Civil War. The locals, led by Mayor Buckman and the sinister Granny Boone, welcome the visitors with kindness, music, and a huge feast. With no cell signal and completely isolated, the young people agree to stay. The festive atmosphere, however, soon turns into something much darker. One by one, the visitors begin to disappear, murdered in extremely violent ways. The shock comes when it becomes clear that they're not just victims, but the main course of the celebration. Little by little, the truth comes out. Pleasant Valley isn't an ordinary town, but a macabre memorial. All the residents are actually vengeful spirits of Confederates who died there during the Civil War. A sign reveals the cruel rule: 2001 residents were massacred in the past, so 2001 Northerners must die for the blood debt to be paid. Anderson and Joey manage to escape and believe they've finally survived. They warn the police and ride off down the road on their motorcycle. At the very last moment, it seems they're finally going to get away for good, but a stretched barbed wire slices across their necks, killing them both. Hucklebilly collects the heads and continues down the road, making it clear the massacre is far from over. The Giant Hand. The Cabin in the Woods starts by showing it's not a typical horror movie. Instead of screaming teenagers running around, the film opens inside an underground laboratory where 2 employees, Gary Sitterson and Steve Hadley, calmly discuss a mysterious ritual. Meanwhile, a group of American college students, Dana, Jules, Kurt, Holden, and Marty, head out for a weekend at a remote cabin in the woods, thinking it'll just be drinking, fooling around, and nothing else. What they don't know is that every step of the trip is being controlled. The cabin is a trap set by a secret organization that manipulates the group's behavior. In the cabin's basement, filled with strange items, Dana ends up reading the diary of Patience Buckner, awakening an entire family of zombies that begins hunting the young people one by one. Jules dies first. Kurt tries to escape and ends up dying when he crashes into an invisible force field, and Holden is murdered during an escape attempt. When everything seems to be following the script, Dana barely survives, and Marty, who everyone thought was dead, reappears. Together, they discover the truth. The massacre is part of an annual ritual meant to appease the ancients, ancient entities that demand the sacrifice of 5 classic horror archetypes. Dana is the virgin and Marty the fool, and the ritual only works if she's the last to die or survives alone. In the end, Dana has the chance to kill Marty and save the world. She hesitates hesitates, realizes how absurd everything is, and decides not to complete the ritual. The two accept the end, sit side by side and wait. Seconds later, a colossal hand emerges from the earth, destroying the facility, the cabin, and the entire world. Best friends. In Megan is Missing, we follow the story of two teenage girls, Megan Stewart and her best friend Amy Herman. Megan is popular, rebellious, and constantly clashes with her mother, while Amy is more conservative and naive. The story takes a dark turn when Megan meets Josh through anonymous video chats. He manages to manipulate her with charm and precise information about her life. Eventually, she agrees to meet Josh behind a restaurant, and guess what? Megan is missing. After that, Amy starts investigating on her own, and the man stalks and threatens her when he realizes she's suspicious. The tragic conclusion comes when Amy is captured. After that, the girl suffers a lot, but everything gets worse when the man makes a cruel proposal. He says that if she gets inside a barrel, she'll be set free. But when he opens the lid, the decomposing body of Megan is revealed inside. Amy begs for her life, but Josh forces her in and closes the lid. Then he buries both of them, making sure their bodies are never found. And that's the ending, with only Amy's screams being heard. To close it out, the final shot of the movie is haunting. Missing posters of Megan and Amy side by side. Deadly cycle. In Unfriended, the horror unfolds entirely through the laptop of Blair Lilly, a teenage girl from Fresno, California. Everything happens 1 year after her childhood friend Laura Barnes commits suicide following the release of a humiliating video. Blair and her group of friends receive mysterious messages from an anonymous account called Billy227, which soon reveals itself to be Laura's spirit. The entire group is forced to interact with Laura online, but any attempt to log off or escape results in horrific deaths. Ken is compelled to put his hand into a blender and kill himself. Adam dies instantly after Blair reveals a secret about him. Jess is suffocated by her curling iron, and Mitch is stabbed to death after confessing his guilt in Laura's tragic end. In the final scene, Blair is accused of being responsible for what happened, as she was the one who shared the video. She senses someone in the room, her laptop is shut, and Laura's spirit physically attacks her, breaking through the screen barrier. The Witch. In the Blair Witch Project, 3 film students, Heather, Mike, and Josh, travel to Burkittsville to document the legend of the Blair Witch. They talk to local residents about old disappearances, including Rustin Parr, a hermit who murdered 7 children in his basement in the 1940s. As they explore the forest, the 3 get lost, find graves, stone cairns, and stick figures hanging from trees. Tension rises when Josh mysteriously disappears, and Heather and Mike spend the night trying to find him. They realize they're walking in circles and discover a bundle of sticks tied with fabric from Josh's shirt containing his blood, teeth, and hair. The situation becomes desperate, with Heather recording videos apologizing to their families and admitting that something evil is stalking them.
I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry. I'm scared to close my eyes.
When Heather and Mike find Rustin Parr's abandoned house, they hear Josh's voice, run upstairs, but he doesn't appear. Mike goes down to the basement and, without explanation, stands motionless facing the corner, mirroring the fate of the children murdered by Parr. Heather screams and runs down after him, but is attacked by an invisible force. The camera falls to the ground, capturing only Mike standing in the corner and Heather's screams, before the image goes completely black and the sound cuts out. In the end, no one survives the witch. Hell House. The house that Jack built follows. Jack, a failed architect from Washington who decides to turn murder into a form of artistic expression while narrating his crimes to Verge, a figure who accompanies him like a silent guide. Throughout the film, Jack kills people in cold, calculated ways, always trying to justify everything as art, from crushing a woman with a car jack to hunting children during what was supposed to be a family outing. Each crime becomes part of a larger project, fueled by obsessions, OCD, and a sick need for recognition. He stores bodies in an industrial freezer and starts seeing himself as a misunderstood genius, taunting the police and feeling untouchable. When he's finally cornered, Jack reveals his masterpiece, a house built out of the frozen corpses of his victims, a literal reflection of his twisted mind and obsession with architecture. When everything seems lost, Jack follows Verge through a hole in the ground and enters a direct ascent into hell, passing through landscapes that resemble eternal judgment and endless suffering. As he nears the 9th circle, he sees something that looks like a way out, a ladder on the other side of a deep abyss. Even after being warned by Verge, Jack tries to climb the rocky wall, convinced he can escape even from hell. The attempt lasts only a few seconds. He loses his grip, plunges into the void, and falls straight into the abyss, swallowed by darkness. Closing walls. Saw 5 follows Agent Peter Strom as he believes he's dismantling Jigsaw's legacy. It all begins with Seth, a released killer trapped in a device with a giant pendulum that promises to shut off if he crushes his own hands, but the mechanism comes down anyway and slices him in half, making it clear that this game didn't follow John Kramer's rules. Strom, on the other hand, survives absurd situations, including a drowning trap where he improvises a tracheotomy with a pen, leaves the hospital alive, and starts connecting the dots. Investigating the victims, he discovers that Seth murdered Hoffman's sister and realizes Hoffman had been acting out of revenge, being blackmailed by Jigsaw into becoming an apprentice. Meanwhile, a new game puts 5 people into traps that required cooperation from the start, but instead turn into a bloodbath driven by ego, bad decisions, and betrayal, leaving only 2 survivors. In the end, Strom follows Hoffman to the old gas house. A tape instructs him to get inside a box to survive, but Strom ignores the warning. In fact, he doesn't even listen to the tape and ends up making one of the dumbest decisions in horror movie history. He grabs Hoffman and puts him inside a glass box. Then the walls of the room start closing in, the box lowers into the floor, and Strom realizes too late that he made the wrong choice. All he had to do was listen to the tape. With no time to react, he's crushed between the walls as Hoffman watches, fully taking over as Jigsaw's successor at the very last moment. The Nightmare. A Nightmare on Elm Street begins with Tina being attacked in her dreams by a disfigured man wearing bladed gloves, and it quickly becomes clear that what happens in dreams leaves real marks. When Tina falls asleep, she's killed by an invisible force, and her boyfriend, not understanding what happened, runs away and ends up being arrested as a murder suspect. Later, he's killed as well. Nancy, Tina's best friend, starts having the same dreams and realizes that staying awake might save her life. She discovers that Freddy Krueger was a child killer who was burned alive by neighborhood parents after escaping justice. Understanding that Freddy feeds on fear, Nancy decides to face him head-on, pulls the monster from the dream world into reality, sets traps, sets him on fire, and locks him in the basement, giving the impression that it's all over. When morning comes, the movie delivers a suspicious sense of relief. Nancy's mother is alive, her dead friends appear smiling, and everything feels a little too normal. But the nightmare isn't over. As Nancy gets into the car, the convertible top closes on its own with the colors of Freddy's sweater. The vehicle speeds off out of control, and within seconds, Freddy reappears, grabbing Nancy's mother through the window. Final silence. Rec follows Angela Vidal, a reporter who just wanted to record a quiet night showing the daily life of firefighters until a simple call takes everyone to a dark apartment building. A violent elderly woman, unexplained bites, and suddenly the entire building is sealed off by authorities with no clear explanation. What seemed like an isolated incident turns into a nightmare when the injured start attacking, revealing an infection transmitted through saliva. Angela and her cameraman Pablo keep filming as residents panic. Children become infected within seconds, and every attempt to help only makes things worse. As the infected take over the floors, the only chance of escape seems to be the keys to the building manager's apartment, but the plan quickly falls apart, leaving only Angela and her cameraman Pablo alive. Cornered, they climb to the penthouse and discover a secret experiment tied to the Vatican, mixing science and possession with an infected child abandoned there. In complete darkness, the night vision camera reveals a thin, silent, completely deformed human figure moving through the apartment like a starving animal. Pablo tries to escape but is attacked, dropping the camera. Angela is thrown to the ground, takes a deep breath, trying not to make any noise. At the very last second, something grabs her in the dark and violently drags her away. The truck. In the final destination, Nick O'Bannon and his friends Lori, Hunt, and Janet are at a car race that ends in a massive crash, killing everyone there. But hold on, it was just a premonition Nick had, and when he realizes things are playing out exactly like his vision, he quickly leaves the place with his friends and a group of other people. They survive the accident, but Nick realizes death hasn't given up and will hunt the survivors one by one. From there, the tension only increases. Nadia is decapitated by a tire, Carter is burned alive, and Samantha is killed when a rock flies straight into her eye. Nick tries to save the next victims, but most of the time it goes wrong, like Hunt dying in the pool and George being killed by a runaway ambulance. The climax happens at a shopping mall when Nick and Lori run to save Janet and others after Nick has a vision of the place exploding. Nick manages to stop the explosion and saves several lives. In the final scene, 2 weeks later, Nick, Lori, and Janet meet at a cafe, believing they survived. But we're watching a premonition, right? That calm mood quickly turns dark. A runaway truck swerves to avoid scaffolding and crashes through the building, brutally killing all 3. An X-ray style shot shows the bloody, detailed impact, confirming that the fate set by death is unavoidable. The final shot. Night of the Living Dead follows Barbara and Johnny as they arrive at an isolated cemetery in Pennsylvania, where a pale, strange man appears out of nowhere, kills Johnny, and chases Barbara to a nearby farmhouse, already surrounded by hungry, walking corpses. Inside, chaos erupts when Ben shows up and takes control, trying to protect the house as the group falls apart due to bad decisions, constant arguments, and pure desperation. Ben plans to get supplies and fuel to escape in his truck, and along with him, Tom and Judy try to refuel it. However, a fuel leak causes an explosion that kills Tom and Judy, ending their chances of escape. The house is then overrun, and the basement becomes a nightmare of its own, with betrayals, brutal deaths, and even a child turned into a monster attacking her own parents. Through all of this, Ben survives almost everything: gunshots, fire, and an entire night hiding in the basement while the world collapses outside. When day finally breaks, it seems like he's won. An armed patrol arrives to eliminate the remaining undead, and Ben, hearing the gunshots, comes out of hiding believing he's safe. But the relief lasts only seconds. Without warning, without checking, without a word, the men see him and shoot him straight in the head, mistaking him for a zombie. Ben dies at the very last possible moment, after surviving an entire hell.